Nalva,
Hi there.
hey, give me one sec. I'll put my camera on. I gotta get camera ready. How you doing?
I'm really tired, but
Yeah,
I'm good.
long weekend?
No, I just think it's like the time change and not sleeping well, like literally having a hard time staying awake. It's a problem.
Oh, I'm sorry. Welcome to my life. Yeah,
Yeah.
happens a lot to me. Did you move in with your boyfriend?
Yeah, I'm in our new place.
Oh, cool. Very
Yeah.
nice. All right, hold on. How do I start this video thing? Hey,
And you're in your new place?
I'm in my sister's house.
Wait, didn't you get a new place?
I did for like a minute, and then I had to move out. It's a long story.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Hold on, I gotta change my view here. Gallery. Here we go. All right. I think you might be the only one coming. So,
Seriously?
yeah, people are lame. I don't know.
I don't know. I think work days are better for calls like this because we're already in work headspaces.
There you go.
Like I cannot get on any Zoom call on the weekend. I just can't. It's too hard.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put myself on D&D so we could focus here.
Good idea.
Yeah. So,
How many people did you invite?
like 10, but a lot of people were like, "Oh, I can't." But I changed the time because no one said they could come except you, and this was the time you could do. So I was like, "All right."
Right.
So, well, I think it's being recorded.
It
There we
is.
go. So, all right, cool. So let me just shut this thing. Okay, so I wanted to start by talking about what happened on October 7th. Like, not everyone knows all the details. And then I'll kind of open it up to questions. Um, so, yeah, so welcome to my AMA, Israel Palestine. So, the reason I'm doing this, and real quick, is because, I'm very open advocate for Israel, as I'm sure you can all tell in all my crazy posts. Um, and what happened on October 7th really pushed me into like hyper mode with it because it's like it was like a second Holocaust. It was like the worst thing that's happened since the 1940s. So like world Jewry. And if you look at it proportionally, it was like 59, like something like 11 9/11s or something. Like by if you look at the size of Israel, the population and how many people were killed in one day, like it's that significant. It'd be as if like 50,000 people were killed on 9/11 or something like that. It's that huge in Israel. So, and everyone like knows someone that knows someone. Like I don't know anyone personally that was affected, but my good friend Merav, like one of her friends was killed at the Nova Festival. So like everyone knows someone that something, it's crazy. So anyway, but I found that like the only people commenting on liking on my posts were my Jewish friends, which is great. But it made me think like, do my non-Jewish friends like understand what's happening? And it seems like no. So that's why I'm doing this. I just want to kind of open it up to people to try to get people to understand what's going on because it seems like to me like my non-Jewish friends aren't posting or talking about it because they're just like frozen in fear. Like I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to offend anyone. Like I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole kind of thing, which I get. Like if I wasn't Jewish, I probably wouldn't know a lot about it either. Um, yeah. So, another person joined. How exciting! What's up, Jeff? Let's wait till he jumps on. I haven't seen Jeff in like 10 years. Oh, okay. Jeff, whenever you're ready, just pop the camera on. Okay. So, what else did I want to say? So I can't unmute. Okay. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? All right. Well, anyway, yeah. See you. Okay, great. So, all right. So Natalie, since you're my only Gentile friend here, Gentile means not Jewish, by the way. What's up, Jeff? I guess I could see you, but I
There we
guess you
go.
can hear
Okay,
me.
I can talk now.
Here we go. I could hear you. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
you're clean shaven, Beth.
You like that?
Yeah.
Just for you guys. Anyway, so Jeff, you missed me just kind of going through like briefly why I'm doing this, and then to review, what happened on October 7th, not to get too gory, but like it's pretty bad. Like probably like the worst things that you could think of doing to people, like they did. Like
We don't need to. We don't need to. We don't need to go through that.
I mean, like
Either one.
Natalie, are you aware of like? Do you read my posts? Like, do you know what happened?
I don't read your posts, but I'm very well read on the subject matter.
Okay, so you know about all the gory, horrific things that happen. Okay, so it's pretty bad. Yeah. So to say the least. Anyway, so that being said, and by the way, this might kick me off in a half hour, but we'll just jump back in if it does. So Natalie, I want to open up to you. You're my only non-Jewish friend on this AMA. So shoot. And by the way, I hope you watched the video I sent you. Natalie had asked me previously a little bit about the history since like the Jews were originally kicked out of the land of Israel, what happened until 1945. So I sent her a brief video on that.
Honestly,
Yeah.
Ben, I'm a little hazy about that too, because one of my friends, another friend whose name is also Ben, was trying to explain to me this goes back to to the Holocaust. This goes back to like when, you know, that Israel, like Palestine, was kind of given as a reward or compensation because as kind of like, sorry for the crass sports term, but almost like a compensatory pick in football in a draft for all those people dying, like all, basically
Like a consolation prize from the Holocaust.
yeah, like a consolation prize like Palestine or and then and
So,
then and then yeah, I know, or England. Actually, it was England who did it, right?
well,
Who
so okay, so that's a very common thing that people think. Like there was no, Jews there, and then the Holocaust happened, and the world was like, okay, give them a little piece of land. That's not exactly how it happened. I will say the Holocaust is probably like a triggering event that lit a fire under people's asses, where they're like, oh shit, we need to do this now. But the idea of the Jews returning to their historic homeland is the concept of Zionism. Sorry, Natalie, you had a question?
I was gonna say, before you even go back to returning to the homeland in 1945, I feel like that's where the majority of the media is spending their attention, and people are not talking about what happened before. So before you touch on why they're returning to the homeland, I'm gonna ask the same question again here. Like, start with the first time they were exiled and maybe give a little bit of context over the push and pull between the Jews and was it the Romans or the Ottomans and all of these other power grabs that they've had throughout centuries. Because I don't think that you can look at the context of what's going on without looking at the thousands of years of history that preceded 1945.
Okay. I mean, it's a lot to cover, but I mean, we don't have that much time, but I'll try to do it in like
I
5
mean, what you
minutes.
can.
Here's the boil high level, Ben, high level.
Okay.
Boil the ocean.
Let's boil the ocean. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's been a continuous Jewish presence in the land of Israel, or also known as Judea. By the way, that's why we're called Jews, because we're from Judea. That's where the word comes from. Dating back to like, I think like 4,000 or 5,000 years during the time of like Kingdom of David. Okay. So now we're into BC, right? We're into like before Christ or before the Common Era, BCE. So there was a continuous Jewish presence there. And fast forward to the time of Jesus, which is 0, okay? Um, during that time, the Romans were ruling that area, okay, that geographic area, also known as the Levant, again, Judea, Samaria, Israel, that whole like strip of land, okay? And there was an uprising of Jews against the Romans because the Romans weren't letting the Jews practice their religion, our religion, how we wanted. And they were forcing us to worship idols, which is a big no-no in Judaism. And so there was an uprising, and unfortunately the Jews lost because the Roman Empire was huge and powerful, as we all know. And so in around the year, I think it was 70 CE, so 70 Common Era, or like 70 years after Christ was born, 40 years after he died. I think he lived to be 30, right? The Jews were expelled from the land in what became known as the diaspora event. And not all Jews, but a lot of them. A lot of them stayed. Some of them stayed and became slaves to the Romans and were raped and pillaged and became, part of the Roman Empire and as slaves. But a lot of them left. Okay, when they left, that was the diaspora event, and a lot of them went to Europe, and a lot of them went to other Middle Eastern areas like North Africa, like what's now Morocco, back to Egypt. A lot of them went to Iraq, actually. At one point in the 1940s, the population of Iraq built up so much that 40% of Baghdad was Jewish before the Second World War, A lot of people don't know that.
It's all before Christ, though, right? You said like age.
What's that?
You said it's all before Christ.
No, this is after Christ. I'm talking about the year 70 was when the diaspora started. 70 Common Era. So 70 years after Christ was born. We're in AD now. 70. Right? We're now in 2024. We're going back to 70.
Can you excuse me for a popular culture reference? Because I watched this, I'm a huge fan of The Sopranos, and there was one episode where they had a beef with a rabbi, and I had no idea there was any history between Italian and Jews like that. And I don't know if you watch The Sopranos or are familiar with this
I've
episode.
watched it like 100 times. Go
But
ahead.
you remember that episode I'm talking about where they were trying to get a deal with the rabbi, and they were trying to get his son-in-law to give him like the
get,
get,
right.
And then the son-in-law, when they were torturing him, and he just sat there like he just took it, like these Italian guys were beating the shit out of him, and he just said, "I remember when many Jews stood up against like the Romans." And do you remember that scene where they were like torturing him, and then he said, "We stood up against the Romans. Where are those Romans now?" And then Billy says, "You're looking at him, asshole."
Yeah, look, that's one of my favorite lines.
You're looking at him, asshole. But is that what they were referring to? Because I actually had no idea. I didn't know what he was talking about.
Yes, that is actually, because all these empires came and went, right? The Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, the Roman Empire. And yeah, there's still modern day descendants of Rome, like Tony Soprano, who's Italian. Like modern day Italians are descendants of the Romans. Like Rome is Italy.
Isn't Italy far away from it? How
Rome
far
is the capital city of the modern state of Italy.
No, I know that, but how far is Italy from that land, from Israel?
From Israel? It's like they're all in the Mediterranean. They're all surrounding the Mediterranean. Yeah, I think so.
I think I need a geography lesson.
Well, it's all like Middle Eastern-ish. Like I think Italy is east and south of Israel.
But it's like in driving distance.
I think so. I think you can drive
Tony Soprano wanted to go
the boot of Italy. Yeah, but anyway, we're getting off topic. We don't have that much time.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. Go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, so a lot of Jews went to Europe, and then a lot of Jews went to Spain. They became the Sephardic Jews. A lot of Jews went to North Africa or the Middle Eastern countries. There's a lot of Jews in modern day Iran, which was Persia. Okay, there's a whole big group of Jews in Persia. A lot of them left during the 1979 revolution. They went to Israel and the United States mostly. A lot of them are in Los Angeles. If you know, there's a huge Persian Jewish population in LA. They all left in 79, the year I was born, when the Ayatollah Khomeini came to power and there was an Islamic revolution. Iran used to be a very secular country, and women wore skirts and stuff, and there were Western values. And then the Islamists came in, and then they made it very Sharia law, right? And that's what it is now. Anyway, so yeah, that's where the Jews went in 70, and then those populations grew over time. Okay, that was like the first part answer to your question, right? Okay, then the second part, are you on mute, Natalie? I think you're on mute. The second part, I think what you're asking is like, okay, sorry, I have to catch my breath. This is a lot. So how did the Jews like get back to Israel? Okay, so first of all, even though a lot of the Jews were kicked out by the Romans, a lot of them stayed. Okay, so there was still a continuous Jewish presence in Israel, in and around Jerusalem, and what's called Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, or the West Bank of the Jordan River. There were still Jews living there through the last 2,000 years, from 70 up until 1945. Okay, there were still Jews living there. Okay, and in the 1890s, there was this guy named Theodor Herzl, okay, who's considered the founder of modern Zionism. Zionism is this idea that the Jews should return to their indigenous homeland with their own state, okay? Because Jews, ever since we were kicked out of the land of Israel in 70, have not had a state, right? We were always strangers, a wandering Jew. We were strangers in Spain until we were kicked out in 1492. We were strangers in Poland until we were gassed to death in the Holocaust. We're strangers in England. We're strangers everywhere. You know, what's the woman's name? Esther's children in Persia, because we were rescued from Haman by Queen Esther. You know, we were always like a stranger. We were strangers in Baghdad till we were kicked out in the 40s. We were strangers in Morocco till we were kicked out also in the 40s in the Pan-Arab movement, okay? So, and we're getting our asses kicked on the streets in Hungary and all over Europe in the 1890s, the early 1900s, and all the anti-Semitism in Europe leading up to the World War II and the Holocaust. We're getting our asses handed to us. So Theodor Herzl, all the way back in the 1890s, was like, yo, we need a state, like now. Like this is an emergency. So he got together this World Zionist Congress thing, which is like this new idea, a gathering of leaders of world Jewry, and they were like, guys, we need a state, right? So this idea originated way before the Holocaust. Okay, like 50 years before the Holocaust, something like that. And also in our holy book, in the Torah, or the Old Testament, as you guys call it, when we pray, we always say we want to return to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mentioned like, I think like 400 times in the Torah or the Old Testament. Jerusalem is mentioned over and over. We say next year in Jerusalem at the end of our Passover Seder, because there's this longing to go back to Jerusalem. You know, all Jews, like we could all trace our roots back to Jerusalem. We're a tribe. We're an ancient tribe that we all come from Judea, right? And Jerusalem's the capital city with the temple and the Holy of Holies and the anyway, I'm getting carried away. So anyway, then fast forward to like the 1940s. We all know what happened. World War II. Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews. Holocaust, horrible. That became like a triggering event. And also England. So I don't know the exact history of this, but there's this thing called the Balfour Declaration, where this guy Lord Balfour was like, I think, the head of England or something. And this was in like either the early 1900s or late 1800s, and he made this promise to the Jews, because I think the Jews helped them with something like gunpowder or something like that, and he was like, we're going to give you a land, because that area was controlled by the British after World War One. Before World War One, it was controlled by the Ottomans, the Turkish Empire. After World War One, the British won, right, the Allied powers, and then they controlled what's called Palestine. That's a whole nother discussion why it's called Palestine. Anyway, so then they said after World War One, we're going to give this land to the Jews, like at some point, right? And they also control this area called Transjordan, which is like east of the Jordan River. Something happened. I don't remember exactly what happened with England, but before World War, I think it was either in between World Wars One and Two or right after World War Two, Britain decided we're not going to give this whole area to the Jews. We're going to give most of it to Jordan, to the Hashemite rulers, okay, who are now the kings. King Hussein and Queen Noor of Jordan are descendants of the Hashemite rulers, okay? They control Jordan, okay? So the Lord Balfour, whoever, gave all that land to Jordan, which was most of that area that was supposed to be given to Jews. And then after World War II, they decided to make good on their promise, because it was a British colonial territory, that whole area of Israel. And they said, okay, now we're going to give the Jews a state. Finally, after the Holocaust, they were like, enough's enough. These Jews deserve a state. But the issue was there were a lot of Arabs living in that area, or Palestinian Arabs. So what they did was, in 1947, I believe, there was something called the two-state plan or something like that. Or what was it called? Jeff, help me out here. What was it called?
A solution, two-state solution.
No, it was like, partition plan, right? Partition plan. So there was something called the partition plan, which was developed by the UN and blessed by the UN. The UN said, after World War II, we're going to divide the land up that's remaining, that wasn't given to Transjordan, the Hashemites, that little sliver, which is now like Israel and the territories. We're going to give some of it to the Jews and some of it to the Palestinian Arabs living there. Okay, and actually, those two areas, the area that was supposed to be given to the Arabs, that had a majority of Arabs living there, the area that was supposed to be given to the Jews had a majority of Jews living there. So it's kind of fair. Like they were already kind of living there anyway. So what happened was the UN was like, guys, we're going to do this two-state solution, this UN partition plan. Right away, the Jews, led by David Ben-Gurion, were like, yes, we'll take it. Like we got the shitty land, the desert. We didn't get all of Judea, Samaria. We didn't get East Jerusalem, where our holy temple is. We didn't get any of that. But we were so desperate for a state that we were like, yes, we finally got a state. 1948, we declared a state. David Ben-Gurion was the leader. The first prime minister of Israel was like, we'll take it. we lost a third of world Jewry in Europe. We're going to take the state, okay? But the Arabs, who hate the fucking Jews, okay, were like, fuck you, we're not taking it. As long as the Jews get a state next to us, we don't accept it. So they were like, no. I think there were like 3 famous no's. Like, we don't accept the state, we don't recognize Israel, and there's no peace. So what happened was all the Arab countries that had armies already surrounding the new state of Israel, so it was Lebanon, I believe Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Egypt, were all the countries that surround Israel on the east of the Mediterranean, invaded Israel at the same time. And we're like, we're going to throw the Jews into the sea. We're going to throw them into the sea. And the Jews were like right out of the Holocaust. Like a lot of them just got there and were like, what the fuck? And like emaciated and shit. Like, oh my God, we have to fight again to live. Okay, so they actually didn't have an army. There was this thing called the Haganah and the Lehi. There were these two like ragtag like bands of Jews that were like these paramilitary fighting forces. And they actually got a lot of equipment, I believe, from Czechoslovakia, a lot of tanks and ammo and guns. Okay, and they were fighting for their lives. Whereas the Arabs were just like taking orders from their rulers and go kill the Jews. And they're like, all right. But the Jews like kicked their ass. So the Jews managed to push back 5 armies and won that war. Okay. Now, another thing to note is that when the Arab armies came, they told the Arabs living in Palestine, in that area, that was supposed to be carved for them, given to them in a state, but they said no, because the Arab League was like, fuck you, we don't want to stay as long as Jews have a state. They said, get out of the way, we're going to kill all the Jews. So they told all the Arabs living there to leave. Okay, they said, get out of the way. So a lot of them went to what's now the Gaza Strip, and a lot of them went to areas in the West Bank that they weren't living before. So they got out of the way, and the Arabs were like, we're going to kill all the Jews, and you can come back like in a week and take everything. And they're like, sure, no problem. Well, guess what? The Jews won. So all those Arabs didn't have anywhere to go. Now, ask yourself, why haven't any of the Arab countries absorbed any of those refugees?
I've actually asked myself that question quite frequently.
So if you can answer that question, you'll understand the key to the Arab-Israeli conflict. Why won't and they still won't. Even in the now Gaza war, October 7th, this war right now, they still won't. Egypt said, we will not take a single Palestinian from Gaza. They shut down the Rafah gate. They're building a buffer zone. Fuck you, we're not taking them. We don't want any Palestinians.
Well, even to that point, the next question is, why haven't other Middle Eastern countries done more to de-escalate the conflict aside from taking the refugees? Everyone is quiet. So I'd like to understand that.
Yeah, so would I. So I wish I had an answer to that question. Oh, actually, I do have an answer. It's because they don't want to solve the conflict. They want to use their own Arab brothers and sisters as political pawns to make Israel look bad, which they've successfully done for decades. Okay?
Wait, this is Egypt doing
What's
this?
that?
Egypt doing this?
Yeah, Egypt. There's a whole hour. I posted it for Al Jazeera. The king of Al Sisi, the president of Egypt, was like, "We will not take one single Palestinian, and if we do, we will nix the peace treaty with Israel, and we'll go to war with Israel over it." They're like, "We're not taking one single Palestinian refugee. They're getting slaughtered, and they won't take them in."
Just think about, like, you contrast that, just to divert for a second, with like New York City and the migrant crisis. Just think about that for a second. Like,
Yeah, the migrant, that guy beat up a few cops, and we shipped him out of here. But
I know.
slit people's throats, cut their heads off, cut their genitals off. Well, give them a state, right?
Right, and in Egypt, I don't know. I guess I could kind of see that. Like, why not? Like, Egypt is maybe they
Well, I'll
are
tell you why. I'll
they
tell
are
you
worried
why they
about that
won't.
kind of thing happening,
Here's
right?
why
Like,
they won't take him in. This is the Ben Turk opinion, okay? The whole Palestinian culture is like, it's like a psyche of victimhood. Their whole culture is built around victimhood, okay? And the Arab world wants this because they don't want them being productive citizens, okay? So Egypt knows if they start taking Palestinian refugees, they're going to cause trouble in their country.
you're
That's why
letting
they won't take
Hamas,
him in.
you're letting Hamas into your country.
Yes, they're Hamas. They're ISIS. That's why Jordan won't take
Not
them.
all of them, not all of them, but yeah, I know.
70%, I just read this, 70% of Palestinians in the West Bank support October 7th, support Hamas.
Yeah.
Okay. Why won't Jordan take them? 40% of Jordan is already Palestinian because the Hashemite rulers don't want any more Palestinians because they hate them. They're going to overthrow the government. That's why they don't want them in Jordan. Why won't Lebanon take them? Lebanon did take them and they caused trouble. Yasser Arafat, PLO, Black September, they don't want them there. They're cause trouble. They're troublemakers. That's why nobody wants them. Ironically, despite what you read in the news, the people who have done more for the Palestinians than any other people are the Jews. It's true. Israel supplies water, electricity, aid. Despite the fact that they're trying to kill us, we're still shipping it in. The reason why it's not getting to them right now is because Hamas steals it all. They steal all the aid. And when they try to go to humanitarian corridors that Israel, the IDF carves out for them, they shoot them. They
Is
kill
that
people.
documented
They don't
and
give a
proven?
fuck about the Palestinians, Hamas.
That documented and proven, Ben, because I know a lot of people kind of say that's like a media myth, which I don't agree with. But
What'd you say? It's not proven?
that I'm asking, is it
Oh
like the
yeah.
Hamas
Oh
steals?
yeah. Google it. Yeah, yeah.
No, I
Trust me.
have Googled it, but
There's
some
videos.
people,
There's videos of them
then you have
shooting.
Trump, then you have people like Trump saying fake news, whatever.
No, there's videos of Hamas shooting people trying to leave, trying to go to these humanitarian corridors that Israel created, which, by the way, Israel doesn't have to do, right? Israel's fighting a defensive war. Hamas said they're going to do October 7th over and over and over again. What's Israel supposed to do? Let them just do nothing? They got to
I
get
mean, I
them.
know, believe me, the ceasefire calls are, I just like, ugh.
Anyway, let me open it up to Natalie because Natalie asked the question. I hope I answered. It was a long, it's a big question to answer, but I hope I.
No, it was good. It was a good contextual overview.
Do you have any other questions?
I mean, I could go for days with my
Ask me
question.
anything. Give me your number too.
So
You're
I'll
saying that Egypt's reluctance to take in the Palestinians is, and this, so
Not
they,
reluctant. They'll go to war over it.
well,
They'll go to
my
war
question
over it.
piggybacks off of that question as well. Like, just to play devil's advocate, is part of the reason why they don't want to take on these refugees, aside from the fact that, you've got people who are some more supportive of Hamas, is it that they feel like a tactic of Israel is to basically push out all of the Palestinians from that territory, and then they begin to wonder? Or do you think they just don't care enough and they're just really thinking about their own security?
I think they're thinking about their own security. Israel has no desire. Israel was occupying Gaza in 2005 and they left. There was a policy of disengagement under Ariel Sharon. We had I think 8,000 settlers there. The IDF ripped them out of their homes. Okay. We ripped our own people out of our homes and left Gaza. We don't want trouble. We just want to live in peace. If they keep firing rockets and digging tunnels and kidnapping people, we have no desire to push them out. We just want friendly neighbors. The Palestinians have work visas to go over the crossing into Israel and work. So the Israelis give them jobs. That's what I'm saying. The Israelis have done more for the Palestinians than any other people, but we get blamed the most when something goes wrong, which makes no sense. So,
no, I'm aware of that craziness. It's just crazy. It's insanity.
in fact, a lot of the people in the kibbutzes that were attacked, like Be'eri and the other one, I forget what they're called, were like peaceniks who would go over, they wouldn't go over the border because they're not allowed, but they were like friends with the Palestinians. They would work in their homes. They were like caretakers. And they told Hamas, oh, they're lovers with them. Their dog lives in there. There's the bomb shelter. And that's why they were able to throw grenades in the bomb shelter. All the Hamas knew where to attack because
Who
they
do
were,
they take their orders from those bombers?
yeah, they shared information. It's horrible. The people that the Jews were trying to make friends with were told them how to get killed by Hamas. It's ridiculous.
But I feel like Hamas is like Hamas is not your typical terrorist. Like from what I hear about Hamas, these guys party like we do on the weekends, but and the only difference is they're ordering terrorists. Like these guys are in Qatar, they're on rooftops, they're drinking, they're having a good time. They're not hiding in caves and stuff.
Well, their leadership is, by the way, the leadership of Hamas are billion. They're worth more
No, that's what I'm
what's her
saying.
face, Taylor Swift. They're worth five. Taylor's worth a billion. Those guys are worth 5 billion, 3 billion, because they steal all the aid money. So whenever the United States and the EU give aid to the Palestinians in Gaza, it goes to the leadership of Hamas, and they just steal it all. So they're living in these beautiful.
They're living the life. They're living the life.
They're living life in Qatar, okay, and their children go to private schools in Europe and stuff. This is a real business for them.
I know it's that's why
It's a racket. The whole thing's a racket. It's all about money.
Yeah, that's why they keep doing
They
it.
don't give a shit about their people. They don't care. They want to
They
get
don't care
rich.
about this cause at all, right? They don't really give a shit about the holy. They just want money.
Yeah, it's about money. Anyway, Natalie, go ahead.
No, that's good. Can you contrast the ideological differences and similarities between Hamas and the PLO?
That's a good question. So I know in Hamas's charter it says murder every Jew in the world, literally in their charter it says that. The PLO, wait, the PLO or the PA?
Palestinian Liberation
Organization.
Organization.
So the PLO is the thing that it was a terror group, was an internationally recognized terror organization that Yasser Arafat used to run. Oh, it ends in 10 minutes. Okay. We might get kicked off 10 minutes. We'll just jump on in again. I'll restart if we do. Yasser Arafat passed away, so he doesn't exist anymore. But during the Oslo peace process in the 90s, the PLO was supposed to like reform, and they became the Palestinian Authority, or the PA, which now Mahmoud Abbas runs, who's also known as Abu Mazen. So I think, yeah, he's been running it for like since Arafat died. So I think that's it's been like 10 or 15 years, and they're supposed to have elections every few years, and they don't have elections. So it's like an autocracy, just like Hamas. They don't have they win once and they never leave. Like Putin, same thing. Or the guy in Turkey, Erdogan, same thing. But the difference, honestly, like I'm not that sure. I know Hamas is more like, I think Hamas is now, they've certainly established themselves as the more gruesome, you know. They say the PA is more moderate, but I've seen Mahmoud Abbas speak at the UN before all this shit happened, like 10 years ago, and it was like genocide this and genocide that. And I mean, he's just as bad. He might not act like it, but they're all murderous thugs.
When you think about like the difference between at least I think about the difference between them and say Al Qaeda, and it's just like, I mean, it seems like they just are so upfront about it. Like it just seems like Al Qaeda has like Osama bin Laden, we had to like search him out and hide in caves. It seems like Hamas is just like loud and proud about everything.
Well, yeah, they GoPro'd October 7th. They recorded it, and people still think it. I can't believe people think it didn't happen. I'm like, really? Okay, get your head checked.
As I'm saying, like that's what scares me about these guys is that not only are they out front and public about it, and they don't have to hide in caves and do all the things Osama bin Laden had to do, and they can just go and do these things, and they have all this support, and they're basically doing what Hitler did, and they're getting supported, and they're rich. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Anyways. Well, no, I mean, you basically said like what you're saying kind of validates the things in my head about this situation. I don't still fully understand it, but it's just it's a very frustrating situation for Jews in general, especially in New York City right now.
Yep. Natalie, what are you thinking?
I was just gonna say, why especially in New York City? Like, what are you guys seeing that?
Well, I went to I mean the Palestinian protests are everywhere. I went to a tree. So this is over Christmas. This was a while ago. This is over Christmas. So I went to a tree lighting, and I mean I didn't even go there for Christmas tree lighting. I just went there to meet a friend for something. Happened to be at the Washington Square Park tree lighting, and I'm just sitting there watching the tree lighting, watching the ceremony. Ceasefire! 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 There's that, and I've heard stories of some of my friends who are in cabs, and they get thrown out of cabs when they tell the cabbie that they're Jewish.
Oh, wow. I didn't hear that. By the way, as far as this,
Carlos. Right? I mean, Carlos is in kind of our extended social group, so he might be not the best source, but
who are you talking about?
huh?
Who are you talking about?
I think you know Carlos. You might know Sarah Jen, like he's part of that whole group, like Sarah Jenny.
Carlos?
Yeah, Carlos Kente. But he is like, I don't know if he's lying, but I've
Well,
heard.
anyway, I do want to speak on this ceasefire thing. So you'll see at a lot of protests, people are like, ceasefire, ceasefire. So Israel's offered multiple ceasefires.
Oh, I know.
Hamas keeps rejecting them. That's why it's hysterical that they're out there protesting ceasefire, and Susan Sarandon at like ceasefire. We keep offering, but our terms are like, okay, release the hostages, then we'll do a ceasefire. And then Hamas is like, fuck you, we're not releasing the hostages. Like this could all end today if Hamas gives up the hostages and turns themselves in. But they ain't never doing that because the hostages are the only card they have. They don't want to give it up. They don't want to give them up. There's still over 100 hostages. And usually hostages are taken in like a war. There's no war. Like Israel left Gaza in 2005. They just took innocent hostages. There's no reason. Like that's what's so crazy about it.
But even
Decided to attack Israel.
But even the hostages aside, why are they not accountable for October 7th? Like hostages, yeah, like just stop attacking and leave us the fuck alone. Like what?
Yeah.
the hostages are what they're holding on to, but why do they not just get wiped off the planet for what they did on October 7th? You know, like why is
Well, the
anyone
craziest thing about it is that on October 8th, okay, before any Israeli counterattack, the whole world rallied to support Hamas, which was like one of the scariest things I've ever seen.
No,
And I
I
think
know.
even Hamas were probably shocked. They were probably laughing in their tunnels, like, "Oh my God, they're supporting us. We thought they'd hate us. They
Not
raised
their
more money
tunnels
than
in their
ever."
not in their tunnels, on their rooftop bars with their martinis.
It's
And
crazy.
in the tunnels too, probably. No, I don't. It just seemed like the whole world's going insane. And yeah, I know. I don't know if Natalie, like obviously these ceasefire, like the ceasefire has to be on both sides. Like we know that if we do the ceasefire that the protests are asking for, that Hamas is just going to reload, and it'll be a matter of time before they do October 7th again. So
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
it's
By the way, the reason why you're seeing a lot of college students support Hamas, which is insane. Okay. That'd be like if when we were in college, we were supporting Al Qaeda. Like, what?
Well, you saw the article that went viral not too long ago where Gen Z was arguing for bin Laden's point, right?
I didn't read it, but I heard about it. But that's
Yeah.
insane. So, but
Yeah.
the reason why, okay, and we're about to run out of time. We could just jump back on again. But the reason why is because there's been this narrative that's going on now that's popular, this colonialism versus anti-colonialism, oppressor versus oppressed, blah 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 blah, and that's being propagated at college campuses. Part of the reason for that, I think it's in vogue, like it's a trend now, but also because our colleges, our top colleges, have been bought off by like Saudi oil money and Qatari oil money. What do I mean by that? They don't these countries donate money to our top universities. They could pick and choose the professors, and they always pick anti-Israel professors in the Middle Eastern studies programs. That's why these kids are so brainwashed, because if your professor is like, Israel is an evil colonialist apartheid, white supremacist state, and then you see these freedom fighters, Hamas, go and slaughter people, you're like, good, they deserve it. Like, it's so stupid. Like, they don't know the history. It's all nonsense. It's all brainwashing.
Can I tell you that the person who lives, I have a neighbor who works for Hunter College, and he came to me in a panic one day because he organized like some panel at Hunter College. I don't remember the acronym he used, but he got some activist that was gonna, not him, but some other committee. They were going to bring in this activist that was talking about some acronym that was very like it's basically a pro-Palestinian activist who's going to talk to the students. And New York Post got wind of it, and it became like a big, like huge controversy. Like what? I didn't, I don't know what's going on here. And yeah, and they ended up canceling it because I'm like, you have to be sensitive to the Jewish people on your campus. Like if I was Jewish and I'm a young person right now and I saw that, I would just leave that college, like or I'll try to find the article. There's some acronym that describes like Hamas militants versus Jews, and that's what the panel is gonna be about. To a bunch of fucking students, like
Yeah. I'm sorry. I know I keep reverting back to Natalie, but Natalie is our one non-Jew on our thing, and I really did this for the non-Jews. Sorry, Jeff. So, Natalie, if you have another question, I'd like to.
Well, I feel like it's just as important for everyone to understand it, right? So yeah, I think it's better than me just sitting and asking all the questions, but I actually don't have any more questions.
Okay. Well, we have less than a minute left, so maybe we should just wrap before we get booted.
yeah, I think it's fine because I have to get back to work anyway. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you,
guys,
Ben.
reach out if you have any more questions. Thanks for jumping on today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this, Ben. It was awesome. Got a lot of notes.
Love you guys. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
I appreciate it. Like